Okay, let's start out talking about tracing. So when you're tracing something, it shouldn't be a go through the motions kind of thing. Now here I've already got my tracing done, and you will see all these dotted lines. I did not put the dotted lines in my tracing. I think it's preferable that you don't, but if you're really new to this, it might give you a little bit more confidence about some of the shapes. But here's the thing. When you're tracing, don't just go through the motions. And don't do it, be sloppy about it either. Be really thoughtful. So as I'm tracing, let me see if this shows up. Nope, I got to keep it up above. Okay, as I'm tracing this, so let's pretend I'm tracing this. As I'm tracing this, I'm going to look at my photo as though I were drawing it. I'm going to really concentrate. I'm going to check out some of the shapes. I'm going to see if I think they're correct because, my art coach here could have made a mistake and generally does. Just assume that there are mistakes in here and you've got to catch them. I want you to be just real thoughtful about this, about being exacting and about seeing everything you can see because you're rehearsing this, you're getting to know this. But also, if you don't have an accurate tracing, then you're screwed. Yeah. So let's put it that way. Now I have, let's see, what am I going to show you? Okay, I've got a new teaching tool that I've come up with that I want to do with you in a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and put down a couple of washes. And one of the reasons that we're putting down washes first is that it really helps sort of prime the paper. It just seems to work better for me if I've got a couple of washes down. So let's start out with clean water. And of course I have all my brushes just where I need them. Shit. Ah, here it is. Okay. So I'm going to try doing this way so you can see the colors. I'm going to use New Gamboge. Okay, we're going to put that down first. And the thing about putting a yellow down like this is that very fortunately, the yellow doesn't tell you much about shape because yellow is a very light color. And so you really can't mess up with this. Well, you almost can't mess up with this. Okay, so I'm just even going to start on dry paper. And I want a lot of water in my yellow. I want it to go on light, like that. Oh, yeah. So I could take a big flat brush and I could but here's the thing. I am working very juicy and very wet. So this is like no pressure on the paper almost because I'm floating the paint on. Now, I look terribly yellow, but the fact is that I'm going to, it's going to fade. That is, when it dries, it's not going to be near this bright. Nearly all watercolors look stronger or brighter wet. Nearly all. I guess I should say all of them. So here's the other thing. I'm wearing a black shirt. Let's assume for the moment that we're going to keep it black. Maybe we won't, but let's assume for the moment. So the thing is, and there's an arm there. I got to pull it out over that. Black, they just put down just plain black, is nearly always weak. It doesn't hold up next to color. It can look really bad. Unlike my magnificent black shirts, it can look bad. So, tell you what, let's go ahead and let's put a little yellow into the background too. You know, if it starts looking too strong to you, you can just add a little water. I'm just kind of making a few strokes out here, leaving some white in it. Okay, so in the long run, this is going to make a much richer, better black than if we if we painted just black. So my next step actually is to wait, maybe go do the dishes or something, and let this just do its thing up here. I want it to kind of soak in. I'd like for you to think of this when you're putting your color down. Think of the water as the vehicle that just lets the paint float into the right place, and then it's slowly going to meander its way down into the paper as the water dries, undisturbed by human hands. Okay, so I'm going to go off and leave this. When the sheen goes off, then it's dry enough that I could dry it with the hair dryer and dry it really hard dry. Here we go again. So, the color, the pigment, I should say, that I tend to go to on most white people, not all of them, but most white people, I like Quin Coral. It's easier to work with in that it's easier to lift it back off. And yet it's very, very transparent, very bright. It's really easy to dull something down in watercolor. It's hard to make it bright enough sometimes. So we start out with kind of bright color. So let's see what that looks like. We'll just check it out down here on the black. Well, is that too strong? Well, no, actually that's about right. But I think I'm going to put just a little bit more water in this because I had water in my brush. I tend to add some water into my brush as I work. It's just sort of second nature to me now. Oh, yeah, of course, I'm putting this in the black because I want it there. And I'm going to put it in the hair and over the teeth. Oh my goodness, you can't do that? Oh, I can. And I should be looking at my photo a little. Oops, dropped something. Okay. So, yeah, I think that's about right. There's even the hair in behind the glasses is totally out of focus. So I'm just being very, very gentle with it. And I'm still adding more water. As long as I work quickly enough that the area that I'm next to is still wet, then I'm probably not going to make any back runs in this. This is very much like working with those apples that some of us did. See, that looks a little dark. It'll be fine. I can squeeze out my brush, pull a little color up if I want to. Yeah, and see out here in the hair, you're not making any real firm decisions about it. You could have a few like little, see how I'm pulling that out into there? It's sort of going, my brush is sort of going dry. That's a real nice effect for hair. There. Okay, it looks like my hair too. It's really messy. I've got a few streaky places showing up in here. Oh, there is a spot on my nose. Oh dear. Okay, so same song, second verse. We're going to let that just soak on down into the paper however deep it wants to go, which isn't very deep, but going to let it go down into the paper, and then we're going to come back and dry it. And then we're going to do smarter things. Okay, so now we're back. Oh, no, we're not. I forgot to dry it. Now we're back. Okay. So I'm looking at this. I'm thinking, you know, maybe I got a little bit darker than I wanted to. Well, let's check and see. Okay. So, you know, everyone should own a hole punch. You really should. I have more than one size. Let's take a light spot. Let's go right there. Oh, well, when I compare, I can see that I'm not near too dark. So I'm okay. But it kind of seems dark right now, especially next to all this white. Well, the other thing is, it's slightly streaky. This is not bad, but I'm just going to show you what you would do with something that's streaky. I normally wouldn't demonstrate this in class just because it would take up too much class time. But I'm going to take lots of water and I'm just gently going over this. And this is a reason to have a pretty strong drawing down, because your drawing can get washed out. I've had some people drawings just totally disappear on them because they work their brush a little too much too, but also they maybe started out too light. So I might do a little bit of that. That'll even it out a little bit. There's a spot there. There's a spot there. Actually, it's right where I need a darker spot. But I'm going to demonstrate that this coral will move around some, and you can take advantage of that. And you know what? I wouldn't mind having, I meant to put a little bit of color out here in the background. Just the background, I don't know, I may do something kind of neutral with it. And so a red, yellow, and a blue gets us to neutral. So now I've got a red and a yellow down there. Maybe like that. And if I wanted it to be lighter, I would take this is probably actually going to dry a little bit lighter than it was before. But I can take my clean paper towel. I don't want wrinkles in it. And just gently do that too. And that's pulled up a little bit of color, so you can see it on the paper towel. And then I'm not going to throw that paper towel away. I'll just lay it out to dry, and it'll be a perfectly serviceable paper towel later. I mean, we're all conserving right now, right? I'm back. Okay, this is the cool part. Look what I found in the back of my cabinet. I don't know that you can order this stuff because I had this, I bet I got this 10 years ago. You could probably find something like it. This is, calls itself an acetate alternative. So it's a thin, very clear plastic sheet. It's really thin, because I really don't like what I'm going to show you. You might think plexiglass would be an alternative. You really need something very thin. So I've got this stuff. The name of it is Duralar by Graphics. Like I said, this company might not even exist anymore, but somebody's selling something like this, and you really might like to have some. You could also use it as stencil material when you're lifting spots, like on the apples. So let's look at this face a minute. I happen to have here a Micron pen. It's an 02. Which seems to be about the right size, and it's the ink in it's water soluble, which is nice because I can reuse my sheet over and over again. I just wipe it off. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look for some dark shapes. And an area that's real dark like this, I can include it in with some lighter darks. Let's say, well, that one I won't include in right now. I can see a shape here. And by the way, I have to move this pen very slowly or it doesn't mark. I can see a shape here like that. Comes along the bottom, oops. Comes along the bottom of the chin. I know my hand's in the way. Does that even show? Maybe I'm not high enough up. Okay. But here's the thing. I'm not going to do some shape there and cut off, make some artificial line at the jaw. Quite frankly, there's not a line. It's all just my chin is just mushing into my neck with age. Yeah, it's hell. So I might choose this as my first shape. That's pretty dark too. Look at that. Looks like some kind of monster thing. So what I'm pointing out is that you can find shapes in here. Let's see. Let's look up here at the eye area. I might choose to do something like that, and oh, that fades out into who knows where. It might come up above the eyebrow. I know my hand's in the way here. I'm trying. Okay, for instance, a shape like that. Okay. So here's another one that's really obvious. These are some of the darker shapes, and I don't necessarily start out with the darkest ones, but I guess I did this time. Okay. Oh, that looks like someone with a disease, right? So the thing is, I usually look and I see these things and I just paint them. But this is better because I can illustrate what I'm seeing. You can see what I'm seeing for a change. So I think that's good. But also, this might be useful for you to actually work with something like this. Trying to keep this all in front of the camera. Now, my paper is curved now. It's buckled up. All I'd have to do to fix that, and probably fix it for, wouldn't have to mess with it again, is I could dampen the back of this, and then I could curve it like that and dry it with a hairdryer, and that'll shrink the back some to match the front, and then it won't buckle so much. But instead, I'm just going to do this. Okay. So I can see how I should be using tape. Let's see if we can do this. That ought to work. Oops, I smeared it. But anyway, you can still see it, I think. So let's make some shapes like that, or sort of. I've got my new gamboge, and I've got my Quinn Coral, and I've got a piece of tape there that doesn't belong. Okay, so let's take the new gamboge and put it into the coral. Let's see. I want something that it's going to look kind of orangey, and when it goes on pale, it'll make a nice peach. Oh, I didn't mention. You will notice that this is kind of a nice soft peach color. So when I put my coral on top of the yellow, I looked for a certain balance. I didn't want so much more red that it looked too reddish or too bright of a pink, and I didn't want it to look yellow. I wanted kind of a peach like this. You'll never get exactly the same mix every time. I guess you can, but that's approximately it. So the thing is, I want to be looking right here. Let me suggest something. Again, if this shape worries you, this is where I would mark on the paper with a pencil very lightly. And the difference is that now I have some paint on the paper. It's easier to erase a mark now than it would have been when I was working on raw paper. So it's a little bit more user-friendly. Let's call it that. So I changed the lighting up so that hopefully you're not experiencing a lot of glare with this. Let's see, this shape comes down and about along here, and then it's kind of down here. There's a little bit of a gap where one of the wrinkles is. Or I shouldn't call it a wrinkle. It's not a wrinkle. It's a bag. Okay, right there. So I could very lightly do that. It's a whole lot better than having traced it with the graphite paper. Okay, let's see what happens here. This won't be as dark as this is going. This is not finished. You have lots of room here also, so that when you make mistakes, the world doesn't come to an end. I actually would like that to be stronger than what it is. I'm going to add a little more coral in here. And maybe a little more, maybe a touch more yellow too. Let's see if we can get this a little stronger. However, if you're not sure of it, you could start out really light, and you can do more than one wash to build it up. I got outside the lines. It may not look like me now. Okay, so again, you can make these lines wherever you want them or not. There's a shape comes around about like this. If you've spent any time doing blind contour drawing, this will be a lot easier for you. Now, I don't want all hard edge lines. You could, but I'm going to suggest that you make a water neutral brush. And it needs to be water neutral enough that it doesn't run back in. You definitely don't want these to run back in. But you could play with these shapes a little bit. I could clean it up. I could soften some edges. I could soften a lot of edges. I like to not soften every one of them, though. I think it makes a more interesting portrait. Unless you're doing young, like kids, and then you kind of want it to be real smooth skinned. But I don't pretend to have smooth skin anymore. So let's see, where's some more? Oh yeah, we marked some right down here. We'll let this run up into that. Comes up along here, back there. I didn't draw that off, but okay, water neutral brush. And by the way, I need to keep an eye on this stuff up here and make sure it's not doing naughty things. I'm going to leave more of the edges on this. Yeah, kind of like that. I might soften the edge on this bag right here. Just a little. It's looking more like me all the time. Okay. You notice I'm not making wrinkles. Actually, I don't have very many wrinkles. They're all sags. Oh, I don't know how to categorize it. Now, I don't want to work back in here because I want this to stay, I want this to dry. You know, I think I could take a little off right there. But I could work over here. See, there's almost a dark, it's right there, almost a triangle kind of shape. And I can see that it comes up above where the glasses are. It doesn't include the nose. Comes up about, yay, there. Now, I'll give you another little tip about this. When I first started doing this kind of thing, I really had to think about exactly where a shape was. Like, I had to use words like, you know, I would say, okay, doesn't connect with the nose. You know, what I just did, for instance. Comes to the corner of the mouth. Things like that. After I had been contour drawing a while and getting better at this kind of thing, I found that I didn't have to think about it near as much. But I'm trying to think out loud for you. And then if you do enough of this, you'll get to where you don't, it's not as much work as it is right now. I think I want this area here to have a pretty good highlight on it. And I just took that out. So I'm going to squeeze out my brush, pull that up, and take the tiniest bit of water on the tip of my brush to kind of try and push the paint back. I could make a bag there, but the fact is I don't need to because I'm not all that dark here yet. So this little area here, whoops, it bled over in here. So I'm going to take my brush again, squeeze it out, pull some paint up. It doesn't pull a lot of paint up because I didn't have a lot of paint down. Again, though, I got the tiniest bit of water on the end of my brush so that I can tease that right back over there. You could make an extra copy of this at home, and you could draw on the copy too. So let's see, we've got another area up here. And this one, you can see a hard edge right there where the brow bone is. And then as it comes around here, there's a hard edge there, it's a cast shadow up here, and then there's a soft edge right there as it fades out. So again, you could do this with your pencil. The other thing is, if you do this light and you get it right where you want it, then you can go back over it a little darker later. Or if you don't get it right where you want it, you can go back over it darker later, only in a different position. And this Quinn Coral is so cooperative. Okay, so like right in there, I'm going to want that darker, but I'm not going to make it darker this time, not right now. I need a little color right down in there. But I don't try to get there all at once. I may not totally get the shape I want yet. to keep the flow from coming back in. And then I'm going to squeeze it out and pull up again a little bit. That seems to be working. Okay, let's take a break and dry. Okay, it's never going to look just the way I want it to, but I can see that I have, let's take this off for now. I can see that I have highlights right here and here. Part of this may be caused by the glasses. And I don't have a highlight there. Well, before I decide that I need to take that out, I need to get my dots here again. You know, if I worked with these dots all the time like I should, I'd be a better painter. Here. Okay, well that's still darker, but yeah, you know, I don't want my painting to be quite this dark anyway. So I'm thinking, let's get fresh water here. I'm thinking that I might just try to pull a little of that up. Now this is not the same thing as what I would call lifting. This is just giving it a little gentle bath. And don't do this with your round brushes. Only do it with a soft flat. Let's see. Yeah, that's got a little more light into it. Just a little bit. You know, I could use a little, yeah, maybe a little bit right here. Now I'm going to try to paint around those places so I don't have to stop and dry. But I'm going to do more of what I've been doing. We can see that the forehead has got quite a bit of shadow on it anyway. You don't necessarily have to paint around all this hair, but I kind of like to have a little bit of, let's just say, controlled confusion up in here. So, see, this is the same mix of color, but you see how much darker it looks right there? Because this is dry, that's all. Oh, and I did give it a little lift. Well, I mean, I did blot it a while ago, didn't I? Okay, so, yeah, okay, about like that. You know, I could use a little bit right over in here, too. Now, we need shadow all on this side of the face, because the light's definitely coming from over this way. So, you know, I could even use a larger brush here. Use the biggest brush you can. Okay, let's get just some overall shadow in there. And then I think I should soften this edge right here. So water neutral brush. And this is not coming out perfectly smooth, which is good because that actually imitates some of that aging skin without having to put in all the wrinkles. Now, if I painted the lips, let's just paint the lips and look at this a second. See, the teeth are going to stand out too much. If you put your dot on here, I don't know if I've got room. If you put your dot right here over the teeth and the mouth, and squint, it almost looks the same because the teeth are just as dark as my lips. Not because they're that dark, but because they're in shadow. Let's put a little more shadow right there at the corner of the mouth, just because I like to do that. Water neutral brush, soften an edge. I could soften this edge right here too. I don't really need to. Let's soften that spot. Let's leave the rest of it like it is. Okay, so the nose. You see now my nose is jumping forward. Makes it look more prominent than it is. So right now, I'm going to put some shadow in the nose. I think that's all dry around there. I've lost track of where I am here. And I'm going to pull it down over the upper lip. I'm not just going to paint just the nose or just the upper lip. I'm going to run it all in together. I'm going to leave this light spot that's right there. So let's make a water neutral brush. Okay, now see, I need other shading on the nose, but I'm not going to do it right now. This needs to dry. That's a funny looking spot right there, but it doesn't really bother me. Okay, so I'm off to dry it. I hope that you are doing this on 300-pound paper. I hope. Okay, let's see. Where was I going next? I've got some little shapes up in there I don't like, but I'm going to keep them. Oh, yeah. So I was going to, I've really got a red nose. I've got a really red face. The fact is, it's worse in photos, but when I'm photographed with friends, my face is redder than anybody else's. And it's usually not attractive. I'm going to get this area a little darker too. And right around there. Oh, that's good. Okay. You can see when you look at this, there's an area there that's a little lighter than the darks around it. So again, let's make that water neutral brush. There are ways to have a lot more fun with a face than this. I'm sort of going at more, I'm not going to call it realism, but a little more natural shaping. So since this is dry, this little area right here is darker. I didn't get it in quite the right spot. Oh, remember that shape that we had before? I can still see some of it here. A lot of it's really gotten weak. There. We'll just go ahead and put a little more of that back in, get a little darker. So what I'm doing with this is I'm really taking it very cautiously. Water neutral brush. And let's soften a few edges here, but not all. So, yeah, that's going kind of good. I think I'll keep going a little bit. Let's see, this area here was so soft that it's just almost gone. I look a lot fatter here. That's because I don't have the darks in. There, I needed to kill that area under the cheekbone. Water neutral brush, soften an edge. That was so weak and so soft, it's almost not even there. So I need to put more in over here. Let's pull some color across the bridge of the nose, and let's go back into this and get darker with it. All I'm doing is taking a very cautious approach. It gives you a chance to correct areas that are getting away from you. This is a real good way for a beginner to work, although this may be a more challenging face because I'll grade you down if I don't like it. She's very sensitive about her looks. Okay. As it dries again, it'll be a lot weaker. But you can see that we're getting, let's get a little coloring down here too. We'll leave that lighter. I'm liable to get a background there because I was sloppy there. There's also a bag right there. People tend to paint all wrinkles and no bags. The bags are really what shows your age. Oh yeah, that's my bag. I recognize it. Okay. So maybe we'll pull in a little bit more darks up in here. A thing or two. You can be playful up in here. It's hiding under hair. I think that's enough for today, for this week. So I tell you what, let's put a little more of the same color in here in the hair. And it doesn't have to be great. See, but what it's doing is it's creating some activity. You've got, I'm not going to soften these edges. Okay, that's beginning to remind me of myself. Scary. Okay, that's where we're stopping. If you get, painted into a corner with it, you can call me or you can text me. I'll need to see a picture of what you're doing to know what's going on, but you can get in touch and I'll see what I can do. I've actually got an arm here. Bit of an arm. And we could soften an edge. And I'm going to teach you about wrinkles and how to paint them. Don't go putting them in yet, damn it. Okay, that's all. Bye. Happy painting.